In early 2021, Ford announced it would cease production in Brazil after a century, a headline that resonated far beyond the factory gates. For generations, Ford's blue oval symbolized American industrial might and a promise of stable jobs and prosperity. Now that promise was dissolving, leaving thousands jobless and Brazil questioning its ties to the US. This wasn't just about one factory, it was a sign of shifting global power. The decline of American influence often comes quietly, a factory closure, a lost trade deal, a silent retreat. In Brazil, Ford's departure felt personal, a visible retreat of a superpower. The void left behind wouldn't last long. As the US turned inward, other powers built bridges and invested in the futures of nations like Brazil. Countries with growing ambitions began seeking new partners who offered not just investment, but a vision for a different world order. The silence at the Ford plant echoed a broader indifference from Washington. The American dream, once exported, was now in retreat, creating a vacuum. The answer to who would fill it was already arriving, not on warships, but on container ships from the east. The Kamakari plant, once Ford's pride, quickly found a new owner, BYD, a Chinese electric vehicle giant. BYD's arrival marked more than a business deal, it was a symbol of the future overtaking the past. Ford, rooted in the fossil fuel era, represented yesterday. BYD, with its electric cars, represented tomorrow. The transition from Ford to BYD is a microcosm of a global shift, old industrial empires fading, new technological powers rising. For Brazilian workers, the change meant jobs and hope, but also a new economic allegiance. Chinese investment brought not just capital, but influence and technology. This was diplomacy on the factory floor, quietly reshaping Brazil's strategic landscape. The US, once the leader in innovation, now found itself in a race with China's long-term vision. While American firms retreated, Chinese companies invested for the future. The Kamakari factory now stands as a monument to a new era, one defined by Chinese ambition. To understand how a Chinese company replaced an American icon in Brazil, you need to know BRICS. Born as an investment acronym in 2001, BRICS grouped Brazil, Russia, India, and China, later joined by South Africa. The bloc emerged from a shared desire to challenge a Western-dominated world order. The 2008 financial crisis exposed Western vulnerabilities, pushing BRICS nations to seek a more multipolar world. Their mission: create alternatives to institutions like the IMF and World Bank, which they saw as outdated and Western-centric. BRICS became a platform for the global South to demand a greater voice. Despite differences in politics and economics, members were united by frustration with a system they felt was rigged against them. When calls for reform went unanswered, they began building their own institutions. BRICS was no longer just an acronym, it was a challenge to the established order. For decades, the G7 set the global agenda, but the ground was shifting. By 2020, BRICS had surpassed the G7 in purchasing power parity, a milestone in global power redistribution. The real turning point came in 2023, when BRICS expanded to include 6 new countries, dramatically increasing its influence. The expanded bloc now represents nearly half the world's population and a major share of global oil production. The G7, by contrast, is a shrinking club of wealthy, aging democracies. BRICS now looks dynamic and representative of the world's rising powers. The inclusion of rivals like Iran and Saudi Arabia showed a willingness to set aside differences for a common goal, reducing dependence on the West. The new members brought strategic resources and demographic weight. While the G7 still leads in nominal GDP, the momentum is with BRICS. The world's old steering committee is being challenged by a new, ambitious coalition. The center of gravity has shifted. Ironically, US policy has done much to strengthen BRICS. Sanctions and trade wars, meant to isolate adversaries, have instead pushed them closer together. The weaponization of the dollar made even US allies uneasy about their dependence on Washington. The trade war with China only encouraged Beijing to deepen ties with other BRICS members. As the US built barriers, China built bridges, importing Brazilian soybeans, Russian oil, and Indian goods. Sanctions on Russia after the Ukraine invasion forced Moscow to pivot east, strengthening economic ties within BRICS. This created a powerful economic triangle, united by mutual interests and opposition to Western pressure. De-dollarization, reducing reliance on the US dollar, became a central BRICS goal. Members now promote trade in their own currencies, directly challenging dollar dominance. These steps are small but significant, chipping away at a key pillar of American power. US efforts to enforce its leadership have, paradoxically, accelerated the rise of a world that can function without it. The unintended consequence, a stronger, more united BRICS. BRICS claims to be a partnership of equals, but China is clearly in the lead. Its economy dwarfs the rest, giving Beijing enormous influence over the bloc's direction. For China, BRICS is a tool to reshape the global order and challenge US supremacy. Initiatives like the Belt and Road and the New Development Bank extend China's reach across the global south. Beijing frames its leadership as mutually beneficial, appealing to nations weary of Western lectures. Yet other members are not naive. They engage with China out of pragmatism. Russia needs an economic lifeline. Brazil wants investment. India seeks global status. All are willing to ride the Chinese dragon, at least for now. The real question, can they steer it, or are they just along for the ride? China's dominance is both the bloc's strength and its greatest challenge. The future of BRICS may depend on how well China balances ambition with partnership. Brazil's shift toward China is a case study in new global realities. Once anchored to the US, Brazil now counts China as its top trading partner by far. China buys Brazil's soybeans, iron ore, and oil, powering both economies. The relationship goes beyond trade. Chinese investment is reshaping Brazil's industry and infrastructure. When President Lula visited Beijing, he called for BRICS to trade in their own currencies, a clear move away from US influence. For Brazil, China offers markets and capital. The US offers competition and criticism. The choice seems pragmatic, but it comes with risks. Over-reliance on China could make Brazil vulnerable. There are concerns about debt and political influence, but for now the economic benefits are too great to ignore. Brazil, like many in the global south, is trying to balance new partnerships with old alliances. It's a delicate act in a world of shifting power. Despite its growth, BRICS is far from unified. Deep rivalries, especially between China and India, threaten its cohesion. The bloc includes democracies, autocracies, monarchies, and theocracies, making consensus difficult. Economic disparities add tension. China is the manufacturing giant, others are mostly suppliers. This imbalance can breed resentment and fears of neo-colonialism. India, in particular, resists becoming just another supplier to China. BRICS is united more by what it opposes, Western dominance, than by a shared vision. When it comes to building alternatives, disagreements abound. The question remains, is BRICS a lasting alliance or a temporary coalition of convenience? Its future depends on overcoming powerful internal divisions. As of late 2025, the world stands at a crossroads. The era of unchallenged American dominance is over. BRICS is at the heart of the new contest. One future sees BRICS solidifying into a powerful force, launching new currencies and institutions, and eroding US power. Another future sees internal divisions, especially between China and India, fracturing the bloc. The most likely outcome is a messy, multipolar world of shifting alliances. BRICS may not replace the dollar, but it will chip away at its dominance. The struggle is for influence, not total victory. The Kamakari factory, now humming with Chinese technology, is a symbol of this new era. The story of global power is no longer about one superpower, but about competition, adaptation, and uncertainty. Nations will navigate between blocs, seeking advantage in a world without clear leaders. The American dream in Brazil may have ended, but a new chapter, defined by rivalry and opportunity, has just begun. The future is not predetermined. It will be shaped by choices made in boardrooms, factories, and capitals around the world. The only certainty is that the contest for global power is far from over,